Welcome into Redacted on this Thursday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
And on this show, we seek the truth. We try to cover the stories the mainstream media is largely ignoring. So we will not be spending very much time tonight talking and fawning over the death of Queen Elizabeth, which just happened a short time ago. We are going to talk, though, more deeply about stories tied to the new king, because we do have a new king this afternoon. And very, very important to see that connection to the World Economic Forum. The former Prince of Wales, now King Charles, really has some deep, deep ties to this. So we're going to look at the World Economic Forum alignment, what's going on in the Netherlands, and why this is such an incredibly important story.
Yes, we also are going to take a look at the Iran nuclear deal, because the IAEA didn't have much time for Ukraine, but has all the time in the world. Right. For Iran. Right. So this is an interesting story, and we're going to unpack where that currently stands.
So you can go to Ukraine for 3 days, where a nuclear power plant is being attacked. And then that's it, 3 days. I'm done. I'm out of there.
Yeah.
Now I got to get back to my Iran propaganda. Okay. We're also going to look at UFOs and Space Force. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, come on, you UFOs. First of all, we've moved past the point of like that discussion. You know, when the Pentagon, the United States government, is actively expanding now its involvement to search for UFOs, I want to dive deeper into that. What is the real reason here? Like, why are they wanting to spend a lot of money on this? We're going to dive deep into the expansion and why China is calling out the United States for now wanting to militarize space.
Plus, a federal judge has ordered that the Biden administration show emails about how it colludes with social media. I, too, would like to see those emails. They won't be for us for a while, but we are going to follow this. You better believe we're going to be. You better believe.
Bitches, you better believe.
You better bet your sweet bippy.
You better believe. And I'm also going to make sure that on today's show, I pick up any errant chapsticks.
You have two
floating
here.
around.
There's also one right there.
I strategically have chapsticks in all sorts of pockets and places because you never know when you need it, right? You've got to place them in random spots in the car, on your desk. They've just got to be everywhere. If you don't, you'll have chapped lips.
And you get cranky.
You know what? I don't think I've owned chapstick since the 90s.
What? I can't visit your house.
I'm out of here.
That's the strangest thing.
I do put beeswax
Clayton's
on
probably
my
got at
cuticles.
least 3 in his pockets right now.
I've got
I hide them in like silverware drawers and stuff in case I'm like chopping something and I'm like, kind of chapped.
I've got like a special chapstick.
Melted?
I'm going to get you know how like she has a chapstick, she has a bottle sling. I'm going to have just a chapstick sling that I put over my shoulder and carry it. It'll just always be, and I can just grab it whenever I need it.
Hang on, let me put on my bottle string so I'm ready. Because this is going to be a tough show, you guys.
Oh, my God.
Let's
Get
do
one of those
it.
bottles and fill it with chapstick.
Redacted starts right now, bitches. All right, we got the water, we got the chapstick. We're in for a long show. I hope you have whatever it is you need to get through the geopolitics of the day. We're going to make it fun. Don't worry. But we're not going to make it obvious. That's sort of our goal here on the show. We're so glad you joined us. The same goal applies to our newsletter. I hope you subscribe. Go to redacted.inc. You'll find our own special community there, as well as our newsletter, which comes out every day. It is free.
Yeah, please sign up and it'll be delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning, redacted.inc. Also, you can become a channel member and supporter of what we do here just for the price of a cup of coffee once a day when you go to redacted.inc. We are not controlled by the mainstream media. We don't have billionaire backers. So we just take our support from you, the community, that we're able to do this show live here every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, covering the stories that do not get the attention. So thank you for being a subscriber to our channel and being a part of our great community. All right, without further ado, let's get into today's top story, and that is the devastating effects of what is happening with the World Economic Forum right now, playing out in real time. We are watching this unfold, and boy, what a prescient day, what a poignant day when we have the death of Queen Elizabeth and the ascension of now King Charles. He's officially king this afternoon. There'll be 10 days of mourning in England. But yes, King Charles, proud member of the World Economic Forum. Not only just proud member of the World Economic Forum, he is actually the member of the World Economic Forum who created the Great Reset. Very, very important. I want to talk a little bit more about that and talk about what's happening in the Netherlands today. But he created the Great Reset. It wasn't Klaus Schwab. It was the Prince of Wales, Charles. And very, very important to talk about. So when the Great Reset was officially launched in 2020, it was not done by Klaus Schwab or Bill Gates or anybody else. But in fact, the Prince of Wales, heir of the British throne at the time, here he was at the Great Reset speech, kicking it off. Watch.
Case we have no alternative, because otherwise, unless we take the action necessary and we build again in a greener and more sustainable and more inclusive way, then we will end up having more and more pandemics and more disasters from ever accelerating global warming and climate change. So this is the one moment, as you've all been saying, when we have to make as much progress as we can.
Now, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that he was the one, in fact, fully making the announcement on his website. Grover, our dog, can't stand it either, fully making the announcement on the website of the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. Now, if you go to the website today where this statement lived, the website is now being updated and removed. So this is now down. Look at that. The website is temporarily suspended following the announcement of the death of the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II. So the Prince of Wales, Duchess of Cornwall, the announcement for the Great Reset page, you can't get to it at the moment, because they're redoing the whole website in order to change it and update it for his lordship.
Because His Royal Highness is no longer the Prince of Wales.
Right.
He is now HRH, the King of everything.
King of everything.
I don't know his official
Wow, what a
title.
day we live in where it's like the king inherits the throne and a website.
Right.
Yeah.
I want someone to be able to just update my website for me like that, you know? So you can't find the announcement about the Great Reset on their website. No, but you can find it still. The tweet still exists where he kicked this off. The Prince of Wales, Duchess of Cornwall. The Great Reset initiative is designed to ensure business and communities build back better. Oh, build back better. He could do build back better by putting sustainable business practices at the heart of their operations as they begin to recover from the coronavirus pandemic. Watch to find out more. World Economic Forum, the launch of the Great Reset. So I don't think people know this.
No.
I mean, I know some people are aware of this. I see definitely some people saying he's a member of the WEF, and not just a member, but like, yeah, the member, right? Very, very important to understand how this all unfolds, because what we're seeing play out in the Netherlands over the past 24 hours is deeply disturbing. We're going to show you the disgusting moments of government overreach in just a moment in the Netherlands. The videos are absolutely stunning, but first some context here. You don't need to go any further than the small town of Stro in the Netherlands to see its effects of globalists destroying sovereign powers. Stro is a small hamlet in the Dutch province of North Holland. It's about as beautiful as you can imagine. Look how just gorgeous it is there, with picturesque gardens, adorable windmills, of course, friendly people, coastal cottages, little train rides that you can go on. You can drive along and have some beers on a pedal bike. You can also go to local museums and have a blast along the coast there. It's about as removed from the hustle and bustle of the big city as you can get. You can even stay at the guest house, which is a lazy cottage called the Lazy Cottage, for just $66 a night. It's adorable. You can ride a bike. You can do all of that. 9 years ago, Stro had a population of about 1,500 people. Thanks to government regulation, cost of living increases, and devastating climate laws, the people here have given up their farms and moved away. Many of them are leaving the Netherlands altogether. According to public records today, the population now just sits over 100. Think about that, right? That's why it's not surprising that Stro would become ground zero, of course, for the farmer protests, which unfolded there. This was the meeting place. This was the place where it happened. This was the announcement as significant ground transport disruptions due to ongoing farmer protests in Stroh. Thousands of farmers, citizens descended on this area to say enough is enough. Even if they weren't farmers, they came out in support of it, right? We showed you these videos. They came out to show their solidarity with the way of life. After all, the Netherlands is the second leading provider of food to the world. I think most people don't realize that. And it's such a tiny country. It's so densely packed. It kind of reminds me of New Jersey in the United States. It's the most densely population-packed state. And it's the garden state. So it also provides... right, tomatoes and all sorts of produce.
And I wonder, though, when you think about the grand exodus of farmers because they can no longer sustain their business, right? If you can sort of juxtapose this with some of the articles, the news articles that we see popping up every now and again. Have you seen these articles saying that densely populated urban spaces are now the only way to sustainably live? Like we have to all live in cities on top of each other. It reminds me of, if you've read the book Ready Player One, the stacks, where we have to stack up houses in order to use resources collectively, right? This is the way we have to live if we're going to survive the planet destruction. And so in sort of like coaxing us away from living off the land so that we are dependent on governments, it feels very... coaxing, if you will.
Well, this is all the Great Reset. This is exactly what they talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is laid out exactly, and we're going to get to some of the sound of that, how this is laid out in this idea of collectivism, this working together in this way where, you will own nothing. You will be happy about it. We're going to give it up. But we're seeing it really unfolding now in the Netherlands over the past few weeks, but specifically over the past 24 hours now. The Netherlands is a country of 4 million cattle, 13 million pigs, 104 million chickens, and just over 17 million people. It is Europe's biggest meat exporter, with a total area of just over 41,000 square kilometers, and a fifth of this is water. It's one of the world's most densely populated countries with the EU's highest density of livestock. Think about that, right? So this is target number one for the World Economic Forum. It is the petri dish of which they are testing everything out. In January, the government voted. The history here is in January when the government voted with pressure from the WEF to cut in half its nitrogen production by 2030. It's all part of the larger Klaus Schwab, King Charles Great Reset. Watch.
I just see the need for such a dialogue, and I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
And of course, the author of the book, and in following with King Charles, then the Prince of Wales, on his Great Reset plan, Western leaders fell in lockstep with Schwab's Great Reset. They were all parroting this same dialogue. They were taking these talking points around the world and using them. It's amazing to even look at, by the way, if you look at King Charles' tweet, it's amazing to say King Charles, right? But when he was Prince of Wales, and you look at his tweet, and he literally highlights Build Back Better.
Right.
Where do you think Biden and the Democrats got that phrase, right? For the Build Back Better plan. They got it right from here. They got it right from...
Well, if this was, though, he was speaking during the pandemic after Build Back Better was already launched as a campaign. Because I don't think that timeline works.
What I'm saying is this tweet is 2 years old.
Right, but the Build Back Better was a campaign slogan for candidate Biden, I think. Okay. Let's not dwell on that.
I don't know where it can. Look, it all comes out of think tanks. It all comes out of these groups that they're launching these talking points. My point is that none of this operates in a vacuum, where this is just like, I have an idea. That's all workshopped. It all comes out of this. But
together. It also feels like code speak, right? We've talked many times about how what the United States does. Britain sort of falls in line, says, "Hey, we're your buds. We're doing that too. Whatever you want," right? And so. It feels very much like sort of Western partnership of the same agenda. Right.
Well, yeah. And of course, all of this launched officially in 2020 and came together under this one plan. Western leaders, all of this sort of code speak, fell in line with this Great Reset agenda. Even before the pandemic, it was all about consolidating power and taking away rights of the poor, the middle class, in the name of climate change. Here's Justin Trudeau talking about the Great Reset.
Canada believes that a strong, coordinated response across the world and across sectors is essential. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
Okay, Molly Ringwald with that hair. But the thing is, right, that any time that you think that you have to take away someone's ability to live off the land and take power and consolidate it into, like, away from people who have their own agency to live, right? This is what we're feeling now, is like continue to disenfranchise people to live on their own.
Yeah, and you're going to see here in a moment the evidence about the farmers and the taking of the land, right? I mean, because Netherlands even put in place at the time as this great reset was unfolding, they put in place a 25 billion euro budget to make all of this happen. To reduce the nitrogen. But something that wasn't reported at the time was how this money would actually be used. It would be used to kill off their livestock. At the same time, millions were set aside for a very dastardly reason. It's not often I get to use the word dastardly, but I really feel like this word applies here. Once the farmers collapsed, then the government had the money was sitting there on purpose, designed, and it was kept quiet. The money was there on purpose, that as soon as one of these farmers collapsed, that money would be used to buy the farm. That's it. They had to go out, they went out of business, and the government had this kitty of money that was able to swoop in using their newly allotted budget that the government put in place for just such a reason, and the government would simply buy up their farm. Then in June, the government took the second step in all of this, the deadliest step of all. In this process, they published 2 pieces of paper, 2 documents. One was a map showing, this is amazing. One was a map showing the areas that needed to reduce emissions between 12% and 95% in the Netherlands. So they had a map. So all these farmers sort of gathered around this map to see, like, well, where does my farm fit on this map? Oh, 12%? I've got to get rid of 12% emissions in nitrogen? Or am I in the 95%? What do you do if you're a farm that had to get rid of 95%? Close to city centers, right? You're done. You're dead. And then the government would swoop in and take your farm. And so if you lived in Stroh or its surrounding areas, you could look at the map and you could see, how much you had to cut. Were you going to be in deep shit with the government? What are you going to do about it? The second paper they published showed that the percentage of animals and livestock you needed to kill on your farm in order to be compliant. It was like, here, we've created a handy cheat sheet. Here's how many heads of cattle you need to cull in order to be compliant with the government. And of course, now the government admits it was a disaster the way that they rolled this out. And it was, because all these farmers were like, what the hell? Now I've got to literally kill off all of my livestock. But see, the problem is that when in January they printed their initial report and what was going to happen, all of these farmers spent just tons of money buying expensive equipment in order to become nitrogen compliant and to get their emissions down on their farms. So they invested all of this money into their farms, and then they come out with the second report and these documents in the summer, which basically upended the whole thing. It was a total waste of money. All of the money you just spent on this equipment, you can just flush it down the toilet.
Oh, sounds very familiar to restaurants who retrofitted for outdoor dining and then still were shut down because of the pandemic. Sure. Yeah. This is a page out of, and now we see these movements inside of different countries, but we also see it inside the United Kingdom too. And they call it rewilding, right? Take your farm that's, making dairy or grain or whatever it is, and let's give it back to the land, right? And we'll pay you these tax incentives to rewild. Again, closing down farms that feed people in order to, in the name of Mother Nature, but also it consolidates power, right? And you're still working with, there's a great book on this. I've mentioned it a few times on this show. It's called Rewilding by a woman named Isabella Tree. And it's fantastic. And it talks about all of the ways in which the government is unfriendly for anyone who wants to actually be a farmer. She couldn't sustain it anymore. So she decided to rewild, and she got better taxation, better help from the government, right? They don't really want independent farmers. They can't control that, right? They want a consolidation of food and power and resources that they absolutely can control.
What's hilarious, too, if you think about King Charles, now King Charles, and you think about the British Empire, and you think about these people telling you to rewild your own farm, right? You will own nothing and you'll be happy. And yet, if you go to Queen Elizabeth's Wikipedia page now, it's there, it's still available, you can go look at it today. It shows the entire list of all of the colonization of the British Empire under her watch. And it's like vast. I mean, it takes up a whole page of all of the places that the British Empire.
Right. And she specifically exempted her land from rewilding efforts.
Here it is. I've got it here. Let's take it on my screen here. These are all of, if you go to Queen Elizabeth's Wikipedia right now, this is updated. All of the places that are specifically colonized: Canada, Australia. So all up to the present, under her watch, because she ascended in 1952 as the queen, right? Australia, New Zealand, all the way down the line. Barbados, the Bahamas, and then, of course, turned over some of them back, South Africa, Pakistan, Malta, all of them. But isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Not surprising.
I mean, yes.
So I think the bottom of that list is places to move.
Right.
Right.
Now that they've given it back over and they're now independent again, after we've taken everything, all the resources.
In some countries, even for instance, Antigua, which was a British colony and no longer is, they still use the British pound. So the influence and the power remains in places like that. Even though they have independence, they have no independence of currency.
So the Dutch farmers have fought back, right? They blocked traffic. The Dutch farmers said, no way. Look at this. They ran over, stopped the highway traffic. Farmers parked their tractors on highways, blocked everything. They then dumped manure on the footsteps of government buildings, right? They went through and started doing that, backing trucks up right to the front of a building and dumping it right in the front of the building. They also blocked major highways with trucks and tractors and burned and wooden blockades. They did all of those things, and they tore down government signs. You can show some of this video if you want. There we go. Yeah, they dumped manure on the footsteps of government buildings. They blocked major highways with all these trucks and piled it up there to say, no, we're not doing this. Then they tore down government signs and renamed towns recently, declaring them the Free States of Boerenlanden, which means farmerland in some villages. So they're now saying this is a free area. This is a farmerland. This is a free state. We'll see how the government takes that. But this isn't surprising. When you take away people's livelihoods, of course, they are going to get angry. Even Klaus Schwab predicted a lot of anger with this great reset. But he's okay with it.
So we have to prepare for a more angry world. And how to prepare? It means to take the necessary action to create a fairer world.
Oh, so we know we're going to be angry.
I don't like any of that.
He's like a Bond villain, isn't he?
Yes.
Like I'm just waiting for James Bond to show up on his
People are not
secret
going to
island.
like it, but we have to be prepared for that. And elaborate on that part.
Can
please.
you play that? Can you play that part?
Lethal Weapon. It's like, but I'm standing on plastic. The diplomatic community has been revoked.
Can you play that again? I don't know if you can, Philip, or not. But
So we have to prepare for a more angry world. And how to prepare? It means to take the necessary action to create a fairer world.
Yeah, we need to prepare for an angry world because we're going to take away all of your land. We're going to,
Yeah.
Really?
We're going to make decisions that rob you of basic life comforts that you have been used to in modern society.
It's unbelievable. And
isn't that sort of like admitting that they know what they're doing is wrong? Because they're like, we know people aren't going to like this. That's the German woman like that. I know my voters aren't going to like this, but we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to ring in on this one. I was like, he's going to have something to say about that.
Dutch farmers, though, aren't stupid, are they? Absolutely not. They know exactly what this is about. It was about taking their land. Listen.
And how do you feel about the government and the way it's treated the agricultural sector?
We believe it's part of a bigger plan.
Yeah.
And that's why they need our land. They don't need our nitrogen. They need our land. 85% of land is from the farmers, and yeah, they chase us away to get land for building and recreation.
The protests have shut everything down. Food is disappearing because Dutch farmers are fighting back. Now, police acting on behalf of the World Economic Forum are going on the attack. So there's some videos that are really disturbing. We can't really show them to you here, but we're going to show them to you on our private community channel on Rumble and our locals channel. So we think they're important to watch, but we can't show them here. We've already tested them on YouTube and they've already been flagged because they don't want to show you this. What it shows is Dutch farmers being rounded up in snatch and grab moves by the police, thrown into vans and being hauled off. They're attacking protesters. That's exactly what's been happening here. Attacking protesters, throwing them in vans, pulling up, grabbing them. And as people try to fight back, of course, they are arrested. They're attacking police vans. But where are you seeing this in the mainstream media? Are you seeing this anywhere in the mainstream media? We had lunch with 4 Dutch friends the other day. And they were stunned. They said, how do you guys even know about this? Because even in the Netherlands, we don't get coverage of this.
Yes.
This story. And I read through the comments on our videos and I see so many people. I got an email from somebody, a Dutch person this morning, and said they couldn't believe they were talking to friends and the friends that are Dutch didn't even know about it because there's just no coverage of this story.
And especially if you live in a metropolitan area and you're still able to go to the grocery market, right? How would you know?
Right.
If there's a concerted effort to keep them from you.
And the police have been putting themselves in out of uniform police. They've been getting involved in protests, according to reports, in undercover operations now. So why, it begs the question, why is all of this happening? I think we played this last week, but I think it's worth playing again to wrap this up. I think David Icke says it absolutely best about what's happening now. Listen.
Why has the Dutch government, a guy called Rutte, the prime minister, completely owned by the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, why has he just announced that the Netherlands, the second biggest exporter of food in the world, is targeting farmers to destroy them and get them off the land, which is where all these farming protests in the Netherlands have come from. At a time of food shortages and supply chain problems, you are targeting the second biggest exporter of food in the bloody world to destroy its farming base? Why are you doing that? If people depend on you for what's left of the food, you control them. Where food is abundant and cheap, you do not control them. Where energy is cheap and abundant, you do not control them. Scarcity equals dependency equals control. And that's why they're targeting the food chain, they're targeting the energy supply, they're targeting everything.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
So it's interesting right now, as the monarchy changes hands and we don't have this sort of, amiable monarch now on the throne, and we have Charles who has said things like this, like it's time for a reset, this is our opportunity, right? And has been aligned with some of these sort of ne'er-do-wells, right? Mm-hmm. And his brothers.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Unequivocally aligned with ne'er-do-wells. That's a nice word for those people, right? And so the era of amiable monarchs who are above discussion is over. And now we have somebody who we may be more comfortable sort of asking questions about power with this person in the throne. Yeah, and I'm interested to watch how that changes.
And we say amiable, but it's like, that's the amiable on television queen that we see. It's like, we know behind the scenes what,
Well, okay, but the monarchy is not supposed to enact any political will, right? And arguably did protect the wealth of the Windsor family for a long time in ways that I'm sure will continue to be exposed, right? But in terms of like exerting political power, she played this role of neutrality, right? And will we see that now the ascension of the throne is male, and it's a little bit easier to, you know, I'm just saying, like, there was sort of, how is this going to play out? Are we going to now be able to see the hegemony that is
back in play? Right,
is back in play now. That's what I'm saying. I absolutely don't want to speak on behalf or against the Queen at all, right? But it will, that the time will come to talk about this power shift.
Yeah, there's nothing good comes from talking ill about someone as you know, as they've passed, but it's certainly worth looking at the hegemony and talking about the power that is now shifting and where this is going.
Well, and quickly, like, it's just like the United States. Like, how much power did she really have? And she probably had people all around her that were pulling the strings, and she was just the face of it all.
Oh, of course. You know,
but yeah, then the question is how much power is in the monarchy, right? Not just her, but the monarchy itself, right? And we're going to see.
Well, it probably depends on the person. If the person's willing to take the power that they do potentially have and use it themselves, or if you're somebody like her that maybe was like more passive, they had to do it around her maybe secretly. But like if you have somebody who wants that power, they would do it more themselves out in the open.
Well, I think in the next few days, at least, we'll see a resurgence of monarchists, you know, who sort of feel very aligned with her as a figurehead for the Britain that they know. And so we'll see that for a long time. But once that ends, and once there is a King Charles, and once there is a history of whatever his intentions were, it will be time to talk about that.
We've got more news to get to here on the show. We're going to talk about what's going on in Iran with their nuclear plan. We're also going to look at UFOs and Space Force and what China is saying about the United States militarization of space and how the Pentagon and the Senate are using UFOs and downed craft and off-world vehicles in the new Senate report. So we've got UFOs. We're going to talk about Fauci's vaccine emails under a court order. Boy, we've got a very, very busy show for you on this Thursday.
All right. I didn't bring my glasses today.
Do you want to use mine?
No, I don't think we have the same prescription. But some people in our, I think it was online on Twitter, said, "What are you guys doing putting on and off your glasses?"
They think we were sharing our glasses, like handing them back and forth. It's like, no.
They're different glasses.
I just wear, I don't want to have them on because when I'm looking at,
And so, you know, I keep my notes on a tiny program. So I'm going to do my best.
All right.
Glasses free. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. So let's talk about Iran. And all eyes have been on Iran. And are they enriching uranium for nefarious purposes? Are they going to destroy the world? Is that the goal of Iran with their nuclear program?
Well, those are big questions. We're going to break it down into smaller questions, okay? So the United Nations today says that Iran has increased its supply of enriched uranium by 30%. Iran says, yes, we have done that. That's meant for nuclear energy, not for nuclear weapons. So,
and then the Western media says, yeah, right, you're full of crap.
Right. It's just kind of like, nope, we're not buying that, right? So, okay, is there any merit to that argument? Now, the accusation about...
there's
Go ahead.
I was going to say, even though there's a lot of, information that says nuclear is the best power source.
Right. We have a whole segment here on the show about 2 months ago, I would say. We did a segment about the benefits of nuclear. It is absolutely the greenest energy that we've got right now. And it is the safest. You wouldn't know that, right? Because of the reputation of nuclear incidents, but fewer people die per unit of energy by nuclear than any other energy that we've got right now. So if you want to do your further research, seek that video out. It also was linked in the newsletter this morning, so if you're a subscriber, you already saw it. Now, the accusation about ramping up uranium enrichment came from our friends at the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency. We spoke about them yesterday. Clayton, do you want to give us a little rundown about what we spoke about yesterday briefly?
Yeah, so Rafael Grossi and his team of merry band of International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors went to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, of course, to look at the shelling They knew it was coming from Ukraine's side, but they wouldn't admit to it. And what actually happened at this nuclear power plant, Europe's largest nuclear power plant? And then they gave us a big nothing burger of a report, which basically said, you guys need to have a demilitarized zone around it. And it's gravely concerning that people keep shelling this plant. And when asked about who's shelling it, they couldn't give us an answer.
They said, oh, that's not really our business, right? But when it comes to Iran, it seems like it is their business. So that's interesting. Now, President Biden, when he was campaigning for president, said that he would reverse President Trump's heavy sanctions on Iran, which started during the Trump administration when Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal put in place by Obama in 2015. Trump said, I'm not going to work with these guys. They're bad guys. We're going to put some heavy sanctions on them, right? But since then, Biden has stayed the course, right? In fact, he has said he will not stop sanctions in Iran in order to reestablish the deal now. So Iran is not coming to the table unless these sanctions are dropped. And President Biden is saying something very different than candidate Biden said. Listen.
Will the U.S. lift sanctions first in order to get Iran back to the negotiating table?
No.
They have to stop enriching uranium first.
Okay, well, they haven't done that, right? So no sanctions end in sight. Iran will continue. But they do say they need it for civilian use or nuclear power. The United Nations and the West, though, refuse to believe that, and they continue to scare us that, so the question is, are they scaring us because this is a real concern, or are they scaring us for political gain? This is an important question to ask yourself when you see these headlines. Now, I don't think we should jump to any conclusions. I am not defending Iran or the U.S. I am asking you to ask questions when you see these things. Now, Iran has a fatwa in place against nuclear weapons. It was instated in 2003 by Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who is still the supreme leader. It says that any weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear, is forbidden under Islam. And this was verified by the IAEA in 2005. Now, fatwa is a legal Islamic law, right? Mm-hmm. In the West, we accept that, and Eastern leaders take this seriously and live by this, right? And so when we report on a fatwa, we sort of take it to the bank. So a fatwa is nothing to shake off. But again, this anti-weapon fatwa could come and go with the new leader, right?
I mean, I guess if Ali Khamenei, Khamenei gets, decides, or he steps down. I mean, he's older now. He's been there for, many, many years. That could change, but so far it's not. And at the end of the day, it's nuclear power is all just a deterrent. The idea of it is you use them for the purpose of deterrence. Like you hope that no one is actually going to use them.
Nuclear weapons.
Weapons, right.
Yes.
Nuclear
power actually can be very empowering for a society.
Right. But, the idea of getting nuclear weapons is all the idea of just using it as a deterrent so that they get to sit at the big boys table. That's the idea behind it.
Right. Okay. So is Iran, talking crazy? Well, they do actually have their first nuclear power plant that went up and running recently. It took them a long time to build. And according to the World Nuclear Association, they have 2 more in the works. Take a look at this chart, right? It wasn't until, I'm sorry, you can't see the numbers very well, but that nuclear power plant went in place after 2009. And all of a sudden, it is helping them to reduce their dependency on fossil fuels. So the IAEA acknowledged on its own website in 2009 that Iran should absolutely be considering a switch from fossil fuels to nuclear.
So the IAEA supports the transition in the Middle East, Iran, away from fossil fuels towards nuclear power.
Yes.
Right.
That's still on their website, right? And it has been for over a decade. Now, again, we've spoken about this many times, that enriched uranium is essential for nuclear energy, and that this is a safe and environmentally friendly. It's one of the most safe and environmentally friendly types of energy we've got right now. Obviously, it's not perfect, right? So is the West trying to sabotage Iran's move towards nuclear?
Yes.
Nuclear energy,
yes,
with the subterfuge of weapons, right? Is the Biden administration, or, again, there's politics at play here, because as we move into a midterm election, the Biden administration wants it to seem like they are tough on Iran. Right. But also able to put this deal back in place.
Well, we need enemies, right? So, George W. Bush calling them the axis of evil, right? We've got Russia, or no, what was it? North Korea, Iran, and Iraq, right?
Yes. Okay.
Well,
I'm glad you go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Also, so keep in mind, like, if Iran and the rest of the Middle East were to become completely sufficient on nuclear energy, what then goes away? And that would be fossil fuels.
Yes.
So, like, with the decrease in that, so like we can't have them actually like running their grid off of nuclear because we need that oil.
Yes. Right. So this is where you pull this thread. Now, interestingly enough, heading into the midterm elections, Democrats really want us to think that sanctions are awesome. Sanctions are our sort of bayonet in the world, right? Mm-hmm. Sanctions are working, even though most studies show that sanctions only hurt the poorest people and do not accomplish their stated goal. We are living proof of that collectively right now. But this happened quietly back in March. The Biden administration, as it was planning all these super tough sanctions around Russia, let Russia out of sanctions around nuclear. This was confirmed by the State Department after Russia made this announcement. Check out this tweet. This is from this is an official Russian Twitter account. It said additions were made to the text of the future agreement on this Iran nuclear deal to ensure that all of these nuclear related projects, right, especially with Russian participation. So Gazprom's deal to deliver nuclear nuclear gas and support.
But not nuclear gas, just gas.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That'd be amazing.
So anyway, Russia was exempted from sanctions by the U.S. in order to supply assistance to Iran for nuclear. So the U.S. knows that Russia is helping Iran with nuclear energy, and they let it slide, but they're keeping all these other sanctions in place, which are like aeronautic sanctions and banking sanctions, right?
Well, they get to pick and choose. We've been calling out the hypocrisy of certain sanctions as it relates to Gazprom and gas pipelines and other things in Ukraine, right? So certain European countries can get this. There's all these carve-outs for little things. It's like, can't have blanket, because we know it would be absolutely devastating.
But why allow this if we absolutely don't want them doing anything uranium enrichment related, right? So it's interesting. Now, the IAEA says that Iran has refused to answer their questions about why they're doing what they're doing with uranium, where they're storing it, what machines they're using. They say they will not close this investigation until they've got satisfactory answers, which is so interesting, right? Because they just closed up investigation in Zaporizhia saying, we don't like what we see here, bye.
Yeah, but didn't you just say at the beginning, they've already told us, Iran has already told us what their plans are with nuclear.
But they want specifics. They want to know, because they say you can only be using these Generation 1 centrifuges.
Right.
You can, where are you storing them? They're only taking it to, I believe, 60% enrichment, which is in fact used for nuclear power. But they say, but if you have any plans to take it 30% higher to 90%, that is weapon grade uranium, right? So we just want to know, like, how much is there? I think it was at 95 kilos. I don't have it in my notes. How do we know you're stopping at 60, and what is the real information about the centrifuges? The centrifuges is an important point because the United States is was the first country to ever launch a digital weapon on these centrifuges by way of Stuxnet.
Stuxnet virus,
right? The Stuxnet virus. So
born out of Israel.
So it's interesting. Why would Iran, when they don't have this deal in place, offer any Western organization like the United Nations, or the IAEA is an arm of the United Nations, why would they let them look at their machines after they'd been hacked in recent memory, right? I don't see what their incentive is to do that. Like, do they all of a sudden trust the United States and Western nations after this, right?
Who, the IAEA?
No, does Iran.
Oh.
The IAEA is coming in there and saying, we'd like to see those centrifuges. If I were them and I'd been hacked, I'd be like, no, you don't get to see.
Well,
you don't get to see shit.
Maybe in the same way that Russia wanted the IAEA to come into the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant to say, hey, can you see where the shelling is coming from? It's coming from the west. It's coming from over there, attacking this plant.
Right.
Maybe, can you see that? Do you guys see that? And maybe in the same way that Iran wants them to come there and here's what happened.
Well, given that Stuxnet proved that we can shut down those centrifuges remotely.
And Obama apologized for it, by the way, and said it was a grave mistake.
Yes.
After they were called out about it.
Right. So would you, if without a deal in place, would you let someone come in and take a look at your shit?
No.
Right?
I wouldn't trust,
trust
the United States.
Of effort to show and be transparent. Like maybe they're like, these people are messing with us. The only way we're going to get them to get off our backs is to let them come in and see that we're not building weapons, and then maybe they'll leave us the hell alone.
But Stuxnet shut down the centrifuges, and the United Nations is asking, can we see those centrifuges? Like, that is a dangerous piece there, right? And so I'm just wondering what we think their incentive is to cooperate here.
Well, I mean,
to me, there's an
yeah. Go ahead, Phil.
There's an interesting viewpoint on this because like if I were to say to Clayton, like, prove to me that you're not going to throw your laptop across the room, how would you do that? The only way you could prove that would be like, well, I'm not going to. But then if I'm like, well, no, I need actual proof. It's a catch-22. You cannot prove future intent.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, how would you prove that? How would you say, look, we are not this? And the thing is, though, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because if they're saying we are not enriching uranium to create a nuclear program, all the United States needs to do is stand up there at the Pentagon at the podium and show random photos of a bunker.
Sure.
This is the propaganda that they do. Like, see, we see these bunkers. We believe that the Supreme
we showed
leaders,
last week the United Nations report on China had Google images, right, with no explanation of why a mosque was removed, saying we think they're removing mosques and we don't like it because look at this Google image archive. They didn't go there; they didn't see for themselves, right? And so we saw this in action with another Eastern nation.
Right. Yeah. So it's not much to believe, and we knew that this was happening. Again, we knew that this was happening in Iran before we had the Obama administration lying right to our faces about it. And it's continued. It started, it's been many, many decades of this happening now.
Right.
Under George W. Bush, the lies and, all of it, of course, is about power. It's all about aligning power, and it's all about Israel, and it's all about who's going to have their boot on the neck of the other person in that region. That's exactly what it is.
Well, Iran does have the backing of Russia and China and many other countries who don't support them re-entering the nuclear deal. And so who knows, how much what that really means, but they don't have to re-enter this deal if they don't want to, and they have friends in the world who support them not doing that.
And, maybe this is the turning point, right? Maybe this is the tipping point for this nation to say, fine, you know what? You're going to continue your boots on our neck for all these sanctions that you have on us as Iran. We're going to be partnering up with China. We're partnering up with Russia. And that, by the way, is why you're seeing Israel attacking Syria. And you're seeing this aggression, as Vanessa Beeley talked about last night here on the show. You're seeing this aggression reaching out into that region to try to exert power over it. Really, really fascinating and really troubling.
All right. Well, let us know what you think about this in the chat.
That's right. We've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about UFOs and Space Force and what's going on with the militarization of space. I can't believe that's actually happening. But we predicted it. We're going to show you the actual proof of prediction, where David and I were talking about this a year ago here on the show. We're also going to look at Dr. Fauci being called out by a judge. So he's got 21 days left to get us some answers. We're going to go into what Dr. Fauci has to say about all of that. But first, our show today is brought to you by DizRaptor. This is the best way to start investing in companies before they go public. First, let's talk about space, though. We're going to talk about space tonight. It's probably calm out there somewhere in the galaxy right now. And by the way, there's a lot of truth in that, Because have you seen the news about SpaceX? SpaceX partners with T-Mobile, tests Starship. SpaceX has raised another round of money. Not a word about politics and expensive energy issues. Things are clearly calmer out in space and more productive in space. Amid the recession, the threat of nuclear war, SpaceX continues to raise rounds of money. And in May of this year, the company raised $1.5 billion in an investment round, and in early August, it raised another $250 million in equity. And a recent survey by Morgan Stanley revealed that most institutional investors and industry experts believe that SpaceX is going to become more valuable than Tesla over the long term. So why are investors confident in SpaceX? Well, SpaceX is the leading industry in the first to ferry passengers into space, first to reuse a rocket ship and reach a valuation of $100 billion while still being a private company. SpaceX operates in 3 markets all at one time: rocket launching, satellite internet, and transportation. And that's like a hat trick. The company now has already more than 2,500 Starlink satellites in orbit, a constellation far larger than any other satellite system today. And NASA has chosen SpaceX to send its first crewed lunar lander for the Artemis program, which aims to put astronauts down within the moon's south pole by the year 2025. Now, SpaceX is currently working on Starships right now for the first orbital test flight, which could happen within a few months. So far, there are no other companies that combine so many unique features out there. And that's why Bank of America, you have NASA, you have Fidelity, you have Google, and the Founders Fund have chosen the sustainable business of SpaceX for their investments. And it seems like Musk is not in a hurry to take SpaceX public anytime soon. He recently mentioned that being public is an invitation to pain. That's absolutely right. He says you can become a SpaceX investor even before the company goes public. All you need to use is DizRaptor. And we have a link in the description for you to go and try DizRaptor today. You have to go to our description of this video to check out the link. It's a private equity investing app, and you can invest in SpaceX directly. It's available to accredited investors from starting with just $5,000 to invest in SpaceX. That's right. You can go to the link below in the description, download the DizRaptor app, and invest in the company today. That is not concerned with earthly problems. Really, really great. Sort of really avoids the stock market. Go to DizRaptor and check out our link in the description for you to try it right now. Again, go to the description of this video to check it out. All right, we've got more news to get to here on the show. We're going to look at what's happening in space in just a moment, and we're going to talk about Dr. Fauci. We're also going to take your super chats. And I want to mention, everyone, please subscribe to the channel on this Thursday. We just passed 1 million subscribers over the weekend, and we're burning and churning and doing so great to have all of this community growing. It's just really, really exciting.
Yes.
So thank you.
Still on a high from that milestone here at our little show.
It is a little show.
Our little it's literally a mom and pop news show.
It is. Yeah,
we should have called ourselves that.
Mom and pop.
Yes, we are a married couple. We have 3 children. That should explain your interaction if you are ever confused on why we're snarky with each other. It's our love language. Mm-hmm. It's not for you to ring in on, right? So don't tell me she interrupts him sometimes.
How annoying would it be if it was like the sappy couple? Like if, oh my God, how can you imagine that? Like if we did the news
no
like that?
one would watch that.
Can you imagine?
No.
Let's just try it for a second. Just give me your hand.
I got referred to.
No.
I can't even bring myself to do it.
I got referred to in chat as a.
What's that?
In chat, I got referred to as a third wheel. I saw that a little bit ago, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
For a married couple.
So it's mom and pop and a third wheel, and I guess, I don't know if David's the fourth wheel. I don't know how that works.
You're like...
I live in my mom's basement, so whatever that is.
That's right. That's what people say.
You're like our, you know who I was thinking? Oh, what does someone say? Virgo and Capricorn, keeping
I'm the
it
guy
cute.
on the couch.
That is us. Yeah. You're our Mr. Furley.
Mr. Furley. Mr. Furley. That's great. That's a good Three's Company reference. All right.
Come and knock on our door.
Let's talk about UFOs. Let's talk about Space Force. And let's talk about what the Chinese are saying. This was a stunning story, but not surprising. If you've been following the UFO, the UAP story for any length of time, I mean, we've moved past the point of, please don't be the moron at all who jumps in our chat and says, wait a minute, you believe in UFOs? We're beyond that. That has That ship has sailed, by the way, guys. We now have like incontrovertible evidence and proof of that. And many government employees, members of the military, all sorts of reports, and individuals who've worked on down craft, reverse engineering of craft. That ship has sailed. Let's move beyond. Let's elevate this conversation beyond. Do they exist? Yes, they do. Yes, they absolutely do. But now the real question is about politics. The real question is about money and power and the use of the UFOs, right? They exist. They're out there. They're from another world. Wherever they come from, we don't know. But now what's happening is the United States and the Pentagon are starting to position this as a way of expanding our military into space even more. Now, China, in a speech yesterday, is accusing the U.S. military of militarizing space. And it all comes down to specifically UFOs. The U.S. military is attempting to turn outer space into a battlefield, China's foreign ministry has said. China accuses the United States of seeking to militarize outer space after the Pentagon issued a new policy document which deemed space a priority domain of national military power. They were speaking to reporters, and they said this was in direct response to what the Pentagon issued in late August. Now, again, what happened in late August is fascinating because the Senate and the Pentagon basically are in alignment on the UAP, the UFO, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to still call it UFOs. I know that the government now wants to call them unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton came out with that and she's like, that's what we're calling them now. It's like, no, Hillary, we're still calling them unidentified flying objects. You can label them however you want. But what happened, interestingly, is that Congress has now pushed towards the idea that we see this as a massive threat and we need to expand exponentially.
Okay. Also, aliens, I think, is a word we don't use any longer.
Aliens.
It's otherworldly beings.
Otherworldly beings. Okay.
Just so you know.
Ridiculous. Now we're even so politically correct with our alien speak. So,
I like the term otherworldly beings.
I'm still using aliens, yeah.
Okay.
So Congress has admitted a couple of pieces on all of this. Congress, in their new budget for the American Intelligence Services, has directed that the Pentagon focus its UFO investigation on those objects that it can't identify. Here's Vice News. Congress admits UFOs are not man-made. We know that, right? We know that they are not man-made. And it says that the threat is increasing exponentially. That's the phrase I want you to pay attention to. The threats are increasing exponentially. What threats exactly? They've been here for arguably thousands of years. Now they're a threat. Suddenly they're a threat when we're worried about China and we're worried about Russia. Now UFOs are a threat.
They want our...
Exactly.
Nuclear energy.
They want our technology? Are you kidding me? So again, we are, we're like the retro. We're like the Stone Age, right? Like they're nostalgic. They're like, oh, remember how we were 4,000 years ago in our technology? That's what we want. So Caitlin Johnstone has a really interesting piece, and she writes this. She's anti-war, vehemently anti-war. One of the great thinkers in the anti-war space. She says, who benefits from U.S. government claims that the UFO threat is increasing exponentially, she says. And it's very fascinating. A U.S. Senate report, which is an addendum to the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023, has people talking due to surprising statements it includes about the U.S. government's current position on UFOs. She says the latest moniker, she says UFO enthusiasts are largely focusing on a part of the addendum which oddly stipulates that the government's newly unidentified aerospace program shall not be looking into objects that are positively identified as man-made. So the whole focus of this new program is they're not going to be looking at man-made objects because of the obvious implications of that phrase. That's understandable, she says. If you've got a government office that's responsible for investigating unidentified phenomenon, then you can just say it won't be looking into phenomenon that are positively identified. You wouldn't have to add identified as man-made unless you had a specific reason for doing so. So she says, what for me really jumps out, authored by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, is Mark Warner, is the claim that these unidentified aerospace undersea phenomenon are a threat that is increasing exponentially. So Warner says this. He says, at a time when cross-domain transmedium threats to the United States national security are expanding exponentially, the committee is disappointed with the slow pace of the Pentagon-led efforts to establish the office to address those threats. Now, I had Christopher Sharp on the show a few weeks ago. We talked about this specifically. The Senate is not happy with the Pentagon's slow move on this new UFO identification program. So they're at odds right now. Pentagon versus the Senate and the House of Representatives.
This is like the perfect way to propagandize, because it's like social media. We can verify facts on the ground now. We can verify, like, we got reporters in Ukraine, we got reporters in Syria. Like, we know what's going on. Who's going to be verifying space?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the beauty, of course, of the Space Force. Right. We called this out a few years ago. I said the Space Force was an absolute joke when President Trump launched it. I thought it was a total boondoggle for money. You and I, David, a year ago on this show, October of 2021, on this very show, you and I were talking about how a number of members of Congress, Democrats, had come out and said, we want to end Space Force. It's a total waste of money. It's a total boondoggle. We're going to militarize space now, and it's another excuse to spend trillions of dollars. Here we were 1 year ago, David and I, 1 year ago, predicting how this would be used. Watch.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Marco Rubio, right? I was praising Marco Rubio, senator, who was actually saying, hey, we need to investigate these UFOs. Like, they're literally But his angle on it, if you dig deeper, is, I believe, money related, right? Because he's saying, hey, this is a national security risk. They're hovering over nuclear weapons bases in the United States, and they're turning off our nuclear weapons. We need to investigate. We need to build a new UFO deterrent system to make sure they don't shut off our nuclear weapons. Like, that's that's their motivation, not exploration. And we just want to know what's going on here. No, money. Man,
look at my cherubic younger face.
Yeah.
That's 1 year ago.
Cherubic.
That's just a fresh haircut. That's
it's a fresh haircut. It was a fresh haircut. So Marco Rubio, I was sort of praising him at the time. Like, here's a guy, and he's in the Senate. Finally, we're going to get closer to disclosure. He's being asked about this, like, what are these? And he's like, I'm really concerned about this. But now we hear that they're saying there's an exponentially increasing threat of UFOs, and they're attacking us. No, they're not doing any of that. In fact, all of the evidence that we've seen from those who have worked on reverse engineering of craft, you name it, from Colonel Corso on up, all of the people who've been involved in this have said absolutely benevolent. There's no attacking us of any kind. But of course, we need this boogeyman right now. So here is Maria Bartiromo talking with Marco Rubio on this issue, and just listen to how they position this issue. Watch for it. They're pointing towards money and expanding so that we can have the military-industrial complex running our space program, basically. Watch.
We talked about Congress being briefed on UFOs next month, and whether or not what you're seeing in the air is some kind of technology from an adversary like China. I spoke with the former Director of Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, back in March on this topic. Here's what Ratcliffe told me. Listen to this. Have unidentified flying objects been seen?
Well, sure. We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon. There are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Sometimes we wonder whether or not our adversaries have technologies that are a little bit further down the road than we thought or that we realized.
Yeah, so now it's adversaries, Adversaries. It's adversaries.
What's sad, though?
Yeah.
What's sad about this whole thing is, like, the United States, like, let's say aliens are coming here, and they've been coming here for thousands of years peacefully, because nobody's, like, there's no confirmed murder from an alien or whatever, but the first alien we would actually see in space, we would probably kill.
Well, yeah, I think,
We can go into Roswell.
That's like the plot of every movie.
Yeah.
Like, let's hide you or else. That's like the very reason E.T. was hidden from the government, right?
Well, it's like then the reports from Mac Brazel's ranch in Roswell and the bodies that were recovered, and Philip Corso writes about it in the day after Roswell, and you talk about the watching and witnessing the bodies that were removed there and then taken to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the wreckage, and then into I think it was into Kentucky. No, not Kentucky. I'm sorry. Off the top of my head, Nebraska or Iowa? Iowa. I think it was Iowa. Sorry. Multiple pieces of that. And one of them was still alive. The others had died as a result. And one of them was killed on site by one of the members of the military there. So anyway, all of that to say, let's talk about Marco Rubio and what he had to say about this.
Senator, is that what it is? What do you think this is, these phenomenon that you're seeing?
I don't know. We don't know, and that's the problem. And let me be clear, I haven't seen anything. I'm going off what our military men and their radars and their eyesight is telling them. And there's multiple highly trained, highly competent people. There's stuff flying in our airspace. We don't know what it is. We need to find out. That's my position on it.
Will you find out in June with the FBI report?
I think we'll find out more. I'm not sure they'll have all the answers. I hope they do. Maybe there's a simple explanation for all this. But I think at least we're starting to answer the question. For years, no one was even answering the question because of the stigma about little green men.
Yes, you're right. Thanks for bringing up the topic. UFOs sighted every day for the last 2 years, we're being told. Senator Marco Rubio, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you, sir. We'll be right back.
What is
Breaking news. The FBI has just released documents saying that we can now call them IFOs because they have been identified.
Have there ever been anything unidentified in the sky, Senator? Has there ever been anything that someone's seen in the sky they couldn't identify? Great question. Great way to, yes. So
As in a pterodactyl?
I'm just surprised more people aren't pissed about this story. To me, this is incredibly, they're doing it right in front of us, right? What they're saying is, okay, we've known UFOs have been here for thousands of years. And of course, we have the videos, we have the evidence, we have the materials. The government's admitted to this. We know it, right? So now there's suddenly a major threat that we need to spend trillions of dollars and increase to a space force in outer space, and now start carrying our
we don't have enough problems with like literally food.
Right. So we're going to go into outer space and get into a fight over the moon and develop, a moon base against the Chinese. Like that's the next stage of this.
Yeah.
No, we are an interstellar force for good, remember?
Okay.
I'm going to stick our interstellar boot up your ass.
We'll see about that.
Let us know your thoughts on this story in the chat below. And please watch my full interview with Christopher Sharp, where we talked more about UFOs on the show.
All right, but first, we're going to tell you about our friends over at HelloFresh before we get started talking about litigation around the pandemic. With HelloFresh, you can get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep, so you can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. Now, if you're like us and your family, the school year has started and weeknight meals are serious business, right? Because you got to get the kids to sleep on time if they're going to be well rested for the morning. So for me, I need dinners that are quick and don't take a lot of creativity from me, right? That's where HelloFresh comes in. So you can get fresh quality produce delivered to your door, plus a meal that is ready to go and pretty much idiot-proof with all of the instructions, with beautiful pictures, so that you can get a meal on the table that is what we call in our house a crowd pleaser. You know what I mean? With crowd pleaser, it's like,
yes.
It's not like, oh, but I don't eat pickles or whatever, right? It's a crowd pleaser. Everybody likes it. The plans are flexible, so they work with your changing schedule. You can gear up for the busy fall season with 55 or more weekly options and take the stress out of meal prep and planning. You can get family-friendly or fit and wholesome veggie. HelloFresh has tasty and nutritious meals to please everyone. Again, a crowd pleaser, right? HelloFresh also has quick and easy recipes and 20-minute meals Take that, Rachel Ray. Not 30-minute meals, 20-minute meals with low prep, low cleanup options, and an even faster route to putting meals on the table. So in order to get, let me find our URL. Here it is. You can go to hellofresh.com/redacted16 and use the code redacted16. And what do you get? 16 free meals across 7 boxes plus 3 free gifts. So once again, that's hellofresh.com/redacted16. And again, HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Make your meal prep easy and a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, 16 free meals. Just you go to that URL and grab 16 free meals. People in the chat are saying it's not Project Blue Beam, it's Project Blue Book, remember, and it was a whitewashing of UFO incidents by the government. But they couldn't whitewash everything. They tried to. The United States Air Force program, Project Blue Book, if you look into that. So yes, please. And people, I saw someone saying in the moon base, like, yeah, there's a reason they stopped going there. There's already a moon base. Yes, arguably, if you listen to the people who have been there multiple times, there absolutely is already outposts on the backside of the moon that we don't see. Dive into the research, folks. Dive into it. There's plenty out there about this. I could talk about it all night.
Yeah, but you're not gonna.
Not gonna work here anymore. If
you're not gonna do that.
Not gonna do that.
And if you do, you'll be here alone with the lights out. But the aliens, I'm sure, or the otherworldly beings, will appreciate your advocacy.
Yeah. Well, Cassandra says disclosure is coming in 2023. Cassandra, disclosure has already happened. Like Congress has already acknowledged this, and in their reports and in their acknowledgement of the UFO program, they've already acknowledged it. So disclosure has already happened. It's just now a matter of like, what are we going to do to the science around it and the cataloging of these data points, and is the government going to continue to like kind of push things off about it? There's a lot of interesting arguments now further. But all right, we're going to talk about Dr. Fauci. He's got 21 days left. Dr. Fauci has 21 days in order to open up his emails and let us see what's inside of there.
Well, he and all of his Biden administration buddies have some splaining to do, because a judge in Missouri has said that the Biden administration friends who all told us what we were supposed to believe during the pandemic, well, they have to produce emails between themselves and social media companies so that they can see
collusion.
What kind of collusion they were up to with social media censorship. This stems from a lawsuit between the attorneys general of Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, Missouri and Louisiana. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt and Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry are involved in a lawsuit with Biden officials and social media giants. So the two attorneys generals are accusing the Biden administration and all this sort of merry band of players of working directly with social media companies to censor information and clamp down on our rights to free speech.
So we want to know, like, what's in these emails? Like, what are we going to learn? The commiseration here between the White House, the collusion between the White House and Dr. Fauci. What did you tell social media companies to say about vaccines? What did you tell Twitter about censorship? What did you tell to block any of this?
YouTube is amongst them, not just Facebook and Twitter. That's right. And let's just run through who the plaintiffs are, right? Because any communication between any of these plaintiffs now is relevant to see if this actually happened. So President Biden, he's not being sued as an individual. He's being sued as his official capacity and all of the people I'm about to mention. So it's not like, oh, we're going to sue Jen Psaki and then go and take her car or whatever as retribution. But Jen Psaki is mentioned in her official capacity as White House Secretary. So is Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, Xavier Becerra, the Secretary of Department of Human Health and Health Services, as well as that department, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the CDC, Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, as well as the entire Department of Homeland Security, Jen Easterly, the Director of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security, as well as that department, and Nina Jankowicz. Now, this was filed on May 5th. So at the time, she was being sued as her official capacity for the Disinformation Governance Board.
So Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, was asked about this today about, what are we going to see in these emails? Like, what's going to come out in these emails? And here's what she had, because she's on this list of these people being targeted in this.
Well, she is now having to produce her communication as well because she stepped in for Jen Psaki, right? So whatever she was following up on is absolutely relevant.
So here's what she had to say. Listen.
It's all going to be redacted.
A federal judge ordered that you have 20 days to turn over emails communicating with social media companies over misinformation and disinformation. What are those emails going to show? What kind of communication?
So I can't comment. You asked me this question last week. I can't comment on any specifically ongoing litigation.
Right. I don't think that we will get to see very much of it, at least not in the immediate future, because this is active litigation. This is a part of their case, right?
But if Eric Schmidt gets this stuff, like through Discovery, they could share it, right? I mean, couldn't they share this publicly if they wanted to?
No, you can't.
Why not?
No, you can't.
They couldn't
No,
share?
No, you're not really supposed to do that.
Well, he is U.S. Senate candidate Eric Schmidt. So here he tweeted about the update on this. He said, in May, we filed a landmark lawsuit against top-ranking Biden administration officials for colluding with social media companies to censor free speech. We have already received documents that show their cozy relationship, and now we're demanding more, he said, pulling the thread. In July, Missouri and Louisiana served discovery requests and the third-party subpoenas demanding documents from the top-ranking officials. The Department of Justice is refusing to produce communications between the most senior officials and social media companies, and they're asking for them to produce those documents. And here's what we know so far. DOJ identified 45 federal officials who have interacted with social media companies on misinformation. And by the way, and we should point out, like, Jen Psaki was up there at the podium telling us that they were doing this. So
Yes.
this isn't a conspiracy theory. She told us. She specifically said, we at the White House are contacting Facebook when we identify things that are in violation of their terms of service. We're pointing them out because it's a grave concern to all of us. We need to get these vaccines.
Well, the original claim filed in May actually brings up the Hunter Biden story, right? And now we absolutely have admissible evidence of Mark Zuckerberg saying the FBI visited us and told us what to do about this story, right?
Right.
So we know this happens. We absolutely know it happens. And there will be, he's telling us what he's already seen in Discovery is we see a lot of indication of a cozy relationship, right? But is there actually
criminality or
well, on the one hand, you use this to deplatform people. So it's targeting people. It's harming people's livelihood when you take someone off a platform that they use to support themselves,
and
right?
it's a violation of First Amendment rights. So you could, if you find out that there's specifically people who've been deplatformed, could sue the federal government, and they likely would win. I mean, it's a violation of their First Amendment rights, wouldn't it be, if they are literally targeting you?
Well, and the doctors that Anthony Fauci actually did, the emails prove that he wanted to discredit them, right? And so media companies went along with it, but did social media companies also go along with it and maybe promote posts that were anti those doctors, right? Then you have real harm, not just for us, the public, who bought into a narrative that harmed us collectively, but harm to these people and their reputation, right?
Well, and talk about, David, right? I don't know if you were going to say this, but also the physical harm from pushing something that was heretofore not proven, right? I mean, we'd have years of clinical trials and all of this, right?
So the removal of the ability to have a conversation about whether or not this was good for us, yes, that's collectively, we could argue this was collectively harmful.
Can we have a massive class action lawsuit?
But that's a different. I'm not. Go ahead.
Well,
I was going to go on a tangent, but no.
They specifically created a department, or attempted to create a department in the government to do exactly this.
Yes.
To influence, the disinformation.
They created a task force. That task force is still there. That's and that's what I was going to say, Clayton, is that they're not worried about this. They're bragging about it. They think that this is a good thing. That task force was created, and they did a video, and they were praising it and saying that this was going to be helping people. And I don't think they actually believe that, but that's how they're putting it out there. They're proud of this.
Yeah, someone in the chat, John Sienkowitz, says Alex Berenson is suing the government. Yeah, because he's one of these people that was deplatformed, right? That the government specifically targeted him and went after him because of what he was reporting on vaccines and adverse effects. Like, they went after him for that and deplatformed him.
Look at the reputations of those doctors. Robert Malone. I mean, Robert Malone, you can't even have him on your show on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or you'll lose your channel.
Yeah.
We interviewed Dr. Peter McCullough on the show, but we couldn't even release it on YouTube. So we released it on Rumble. If you want to go see our full hour-long interview with Dr. Peter McCullough. And by the way, Peter McCullough said it's the best 1 hour show that he's ever done on this topic, by the way. So go and watch it.
Nice.
It's interesting to look at what these two lawsuits, what they want. Right? What they're not suing for billions of dollars. They're suing for, this is what they want. This is what they're asking for in their claim. They want the defendants to declare that their conduct violates First Amendment of the U.S. A judge could make them do that. Yeah. Sure, right? They want the defendants to declare that their contract is ultra vires and exceeds their statutory authority, that they don't have the right to be doing that, and that they should stop. They want the defendants to declare that their conduct violates the Administrative Procedures Act and that it is unlawful, and vacate and set aside such conduct. So knock it off, right? They want a preliminary and permanently enjoin defendants, right, to just basically from not engaging in this anymore, and grant any further relief as the court may deem just and proper. Now, I don't know how you could ever put a dollar amount on something like that that's punitive. I just don't know, but they're saying they sort of leave it up to the court that this is what they want. Now, it's an opening salve, that doesn't mean they'll get all of these things, but what could they get is absolutely a public apology. That sometimes courts do order those things, right? And then what? Right? And then what? And then and then we reinstate, then we start to compensate, for instance, military members who were,
lost their jobs.
Yeah. Well, then what? Like, then it's sort of an avalanche of consequences.
Well, but it's also important, I think, in this to hold government officials accountable who, for perhaps criminality. I mean, and this is where Senator Rand Paul is going with Dr. Fauci and the lies that he's perpetrated in front of Senate committees right to Senator Rand Paul's face. Here's what Senator Paul had to say about it.
I think that all of America should be appalled that America's doctor, the leading expert on COVID and public health, doesn't want to divulge information, doesn't want to divulge his communications with big tech. But it goes even beyond that. The last time I had him in a hearing, we told him that through freedom of information, we discovered that 193 NIH scientists had taken, it was 1,800 scientists had taken $193 million in royalties. And his response was, not that I'll look into it and I'll reveal it. His response was, by law, we don't have to tell you which companies gave us how many royalties and to which scientists. So this is a guy that his modus operandi is to cover up and try to not allow any sunshine on any of his activities. That should be a tip-off as to his motives.
Yeah. Well, of course he doesn't want that information out there. He's trying to drive off into the sunset now.
Yeah.
And I hope that the government holds him accountable. And I hope, he's not able to hide all of this stuff. What is the involvement of U.S. funding of gain-of-function research in Wuhan? What is the involvement? How much did you know about that? The involvement in Ukraine as well with the bio research laboratories in Ukraine. And also how are you colluding with big tech companies to suppress Americans' voices and deplatform people, and also to spread misinformation yourself across these platforms?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it's like you have climate sometimes with these things, like, with marijuana becoming legal more and more, and you still have a lot of people that are in prison for those offenses, right? So it's like, if this sets a precedent that from moving on, these tech companies and everybody knows, okay, we cannot like block people and we can't do this again. We might have some doctors and people that are collateral damage, but moving forward, that could be a good thing. It's unfortunate, but hopefully that's the outcome.
Right. Yeah, and the big pharma piece. Someone in our chat, Ravenboy Crypto, says don't forget big pharma too in all of this.
Yeah.
Right, and that involvement, right? And because that's really what I want to see too is the emails, not just with big tech. I want to see the collusion between these guys and the biopharmaceutical complex.
Yeah.
And how all of that ties together with big tech. And that narrative is being driven right out of those private offices and private communications with those people.
Yeah. I think it's interesting who's not named in this, which is none of the social media companies are named in this lawsuit.
Right.
Right. And none of the pharmaceutical companies are named in this lawsuit. And so, they will be exposed through this lawsuit. But I'm super interested why. I mean, I guess they're allowed to do this, or I don't know. There's a interesting
constitutional
legal
question
argument
here.
here.
I think also too, just the interesting part of this is that they have immunity, right? The pharmaceutical companies, but also I love that the judge said no. Like, you're going forward with this.
Yeah,
and you have to give us.
You're going to
answers.
show us some stuff,
So-
and we're going to be watching.
We will be
Once in
watching.
a while, we're getting judges like that with like the Pfizer documents and stuff. Like, that's
Yeah.
good that we see judges actually standing up now in some cases.
Yeah. Well, we'd love for you to stand up for truth and subscribe to our channel. That's what we do here. Is our goal is seeking the truth. We follow the facts wherever they lead, and we try to cover the stories here on the show. If you just become a channel subscriber, it's it's free. You can do that on Rumble. You can do that on YouTube. Over on Rumble, by the way, you can watch our full interview with Dr. Peter McCullough, and where we release content that we can't release on YouTube because it'll be censored. So please join us on Rumble. We love our Rumble community over there as well. So we want to say thanks to all of you. Do we have any super chats we want to get to before we wrap things up?
We do. Def Leffy, a great channel. Natalie, she says you look amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Hidden in plain sight with a super sticker. Thank you. And then MS with 2 super chats. Industrial Technology Advisor, Food Science and Technology. Check out job listings in Canada's climate ministry.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Tommy M, you will own nothing and be happy if we want to feed you.
Yeah. And eat those bugs.
John Sullivan with a super sticker.
Thank you.
Tom, the U.S. isn't afraid of Iran using nukes. They want them nuke free so they're easier to invade, like Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, etc.
Yeah.
Comrade Thrawny, it's a great family show. You both are adorable. How you all talk to each other.
Sometimes. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Unvaccinated guy, Earth has went through 6 extinction periods. In the past, humans were far advanced. Alien tech isn't from space. They are reverse engineering ancient aircraft they dug up. The Germans made the Bell, and it was first gen kit car UFO. U-boats found our ancient ancestors under Antarctica, and they staked out New Schwabeland. American Operation High Jump sent to destroy the missing U-boats.
Oh, yeah. I mean, dive deep into Admiral Byrd. Something I'm actually working on is a story, So should I let the cat out of the bag? I'll let it out real quick. I'm working on something here for Redacted. It'll be a part of our channel. It's going to be something special around longer form documentaries on specific topics that are redacted throughout history. I was a history major, so that's something I want to focus on and I'm passionate about. One of the stories is Antarctica that I'm looking at deeply. So buckle your seatbelts up for that one. We're going to have a really interesting story about Antarctica coming up in the next few months here on the channel. So please
And then
subscribe.
Sneaky Fox Jr., I'm going to take a page out of Captain Kirk's book, We Come in Peace, Shoot to Kill.
Is that the final one?
It.
That's it.
All right.
That is the final
Well, that
frontier.
wraps it up for our live shows for the week. We gave you a live Labor Day show, guys. So we didn't take Monday off. You might have, but we didn't.
We've not labored.
Yeah, we labored on Labor Day. So we're off on Fridays for a live show, but content remains on our channel and continues.
We've got a big interview coming out this weekend that you have not seen yet with Mark Horn.
We're going to be talking about the Billy Meyer contacts and arguably one of the most amazing UFO stories of all time. Why is it being covered up and suppressed? A big story on UFOs coming out this weekend on the show. So be sure to subscribe and catch that this weekend. Oh, we're going to release it to our community first, right, David and Philip? Our locals community?
Yes, that's correct.
So it'll be, if you want to get it ahead of time, please come on over to redacted.inc and become a channel member. We're going to release it to our members there first, before everyone else would get to see a different version of it a little bit later. So again, come on over and be a supporter. Thank you, everyone. Someone says David Icke. Ike. Yeah, I know. David Icke. People, I don't know. David Ike.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. I sometimes see it and it throws me off. You never get like a brain fart where you're like, you know the name, then you can't, you have 3 versions of it in your head and you just can't do it.
No, mostly because I don't speak to people all that often and I only know words as I read, because I read more than I speak to humans. And there are a lot of times when I'm just like, how is that word pronounced out loud?
Yeah, that's true.
So you get that a lot from me. So don't come at me for my pronunciation.
All right, everyone. Thank you, guys. Where's Rumble? Rumble is over at, it's just rumble.com/redacted. Go to rumble.com/redacted. By the way, I saw a news report today. Rumble increased by 77% over the last quarter. So they're crushing it over there.
Wow.
All right, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
No, we won't. We just said that.
I mean, we'll have content, but we'll be live on Monday.
We'll be live on Monday.
But
yeah.
we're here every day.
Mm-hmm.